Hi, and welcome to More Human, More Resources, the HR podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm Vicki Brown, your host and CEO of Vidamaneo Enterprises. As a serial entrepreneur, I understand that having the right expert help has been critical to my success. That's why I'm dedicated to telling you, in plain language, what's going on in the world of HR that might impact your business, and what you need to do about it, with real actionable tips to help you master that list of must-dos and grow your leadership muscle. First things first, the information contained in this podcast is provided for general purposes only and is not to be considered legal advice. Your decision to adopt or not adopt any practice or procedure mentioned in this podcast is solely yours, and we bear no responsibility for the outcome. We urge you to always consult legal counsel and other appropriate licensed professionals. And with that, let's get into the show. You're listening to Season 5, Episode 26. Let's talk about personality tests. Now, maybe someone's told you that it's a great way to get to know a candidate, or maybe you've used something like Predictive Index or DISC in your hiring process in the past. You know, I've seen plenty of small business owners try to work them into their hiring decisions. And on the surface, I get it. You're trying to make better decisions. You want to hire people who are going to thrive in the role, fit the team, and align with your leadership style. And all that makes sense. But here's the question. Are these tools actually helping, or are they just shiny distractions? So let's start with the basics. What are we even talking about when we say personality tests? Well, personality tests are designed to measure traits, things like how extroverted or introverted someone is, how open they are to new experiences, how conscientious or agreeable they tend to be. The goal is to capture patterns in how a person thinks, feels, and behaves across different situations. Now, there are two broad types that show up in the business world. One is the personality type model, like the Myers-Briggs type indicator. You've probably heard of it. It places people into types like ENTJ or ISFP based on how they answer a set of questions. The other category is behavioral assessments, and those are things like Predictive Index or DISC, and they focus more on how someone tends to behave or respond in a work environment. Now, these tools are often marketed as a way to predict success. They help you find the right fit. But there's a catch. Measuring personality is not the same as measuring skills, competence, or job performance. And if you're not careful, using personality tests the wrong way can actually do more harm than good. Now, let's talk about the most common tests out there, especially the ones that get handed to small business owners as plug-and-play solutions. Like I said, Myers-Briggs is probably the most well-known, but despite its popularity, it's not validated for hiring decisions. It's not even recommended by psychologists for evaluating people in work settings, and it certainly wasn't built to predict who's going to succeed in a particular role. Predictive Index is another one. It's a behavioral tool used by a lot of companies to understand how someone might approach problem solving, decision making, or working with others. It's often packaged as a hiring tool, but the real value comes in team dynamics or coaching, not in making go, no-go hiring decisions. DISC is similar. It's useful for team communication and collaboration insights, but again, not a reliable predictor of success in a specific job. The Big Five, or five-factor model, is actually one of the most scientifically validated frameworks. It measures 5 core traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. But it's more commonly used in research than in small business hiring, and the results require interpretation by someone trained in the model. And that leads us right into one of the major issues here. Who's interpreting the results? If it's just you or your office manager skimming a chart and deciding whether someone's a good fit based on a code or quadrant, well, that's not a good idea. In fact, that's how a lot of poor or even legally risky hiring decisions get made. So let's talk about those legal and ethical risks for a minute, because yes, they are very real. If a personality test screens people out and it hasn't been professionally validated as job-related and consistent with business necessity, well, it opens the door to discrimination claims. That's especially true if the test ends up disproportionately affecting certain groups, whether based on race, gender, age, or disability. And speaking of disability, the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits certain types of pre-employment questions that could be interpreted as seeking medical or psychological information. Now, some personality tests might fall into that category, especially if they ask about emotional stability or mental health. That's a legal landmine you absolutely do not want to step on. So here's the bottom line. If a test plays any role in your decision to reject a candidate, you need to be able to prove it's valid, prove it's job-related, and that it's not discriminatory. Most small business owners aren't in a position to do that, and most off-the-shelf personality tests don't meet that bar. But even beyond the legal risk, there are practical reasons to be cautious. You see, most personality tests have limited predictive value. That means they might tell you how someone prefers to communicate or respond to stress, but they won't tell you if they can manage a deadline or solve problems under pressure or stay focused during a busy season. A lot of these tests rely on self-reporting, which means the candidate is telling you what they think about themselves. Now, that's not necessarily what's true, and when someone's trying to get a job, they might shape their answers to reflect what they think you want to hear. And then there's the issue of consistency. You see, people evolve. Their responses can shift during their mood, their life stage, or the way the test is worded. Someone might show up as one profile today and another next month. That makes it tough to rely on the results as a stable measure. There's also a very real risk of bias. You see, some tests favor certain communication styles or personality types, often the ones that match the person doing the hiring. That can lead you to overlook qualified candidates simply because they don't match your ideal type. And when that ideal type starts to look, sound, and act like everybody already on your team, well, you're limiting diversity and you're limiting innovation in your business. Let's be honest. If you reject a candidate because their test results don't align with the preferred type, you're not just missing out on potential talent. You could also be setting yourself up for a discrimination claim. That's not theoretical. It actually happens. Worse still, I've seen business owners replace better tools like structured interviews, job simulations, or work samples with personality tests, and that's a mistake. Structured interviews and real-world tasks give you a far better sense of how someone's going to show up in the job. Now, with all that said, let's not throw the entire concept out the window. There are some legitimate uses for personality assessments, but they work best when they're used for team development, not hiring. For example, once someone's already part of the team, a tool like DISC, for instance, or Predictive Index can help you understand how they prefer to communicate, what motivates them, or how to avoid misunderstandings. That's useful during onboarding or when you're trying to build trust and collaboration across your team, but not when you're trying to hire. They can also spark good conversations about leadership style, feedback preferences, or how people approach challenges. Just don't confuse those insights with performance indicators. So, if you're still interested in using a personality test, here's how to do it right. First, don't use it as a pass-fail tool. It should never be the reason someone doesn't make it to the next stage of the hiring process. Second, if you're going to use it, do it after the offer is made, ideally during onboarding, and only as a way to support the team's development. Third, be completely transparent. Let candidates know what the assessment is, how it's going to be used, and what it won't be used for. And avoid any test that makes medical or psychological claims unless you've had it reviewed by legal counsel first. So here's the takeaway. Personality tests can feel like a smart, data-driven way to hire, but for small business owners, they're usually more trouble than they're worth, especially when it comes to legal compliance, accuracy, and fairness. If you want to build a strong team, focus on the basics, clear job expectations, structured interviews, skill-based evaluations, and thoughtful onboarding. These are the tools that will actually help you find and keep the right people. And if you're still curious about personality assessments, well, go ahead and use them. Just make sure they're there to start conversations, not make decisions, because hiring the right person is too important to leave to a quiz. If you found this information helpful, please leave a review and tell a friend. Thanks for spending the time. Until next week, same time, same place.